Hey everyone, Mystic Magic here, and I just wanted to do this fun little video just for myself, but also just for fun. So I haven't played the game because honestly, just based on what the kind of game Signalis is, I'm not going to be very good at it. I'm not particularly good at the survival horror games. But after watching like let's plays and a couple videos on it, I just really wanted to do like a video just talking a little bit about it, just having a little bit of fun and putting my own theory as to what's going on in Signalis. It's a really cool game. I came because the designs were really cool and I really liked them. And then I stayed for the story and all of that. Like the story to me is just very well written. It is a beautifully made game, visually stunning. Um, the the story itself is quite stunning, and all that. I'm going to be using the wiki just because the wiki has a lot of images. This is the wiki.gg version of it. Seems to be the most cohesive and the most detailed of these wikis. So I'll go ahead and use this one. But basically, just to keep this part short, if you all just want to hear what my theory is as to what the heck is going on, my theory is in the simplest way possible, because this story is very complicated, that the whole story is basically and I'll pull up the characters' names because I'm not going to remember. Um, basically, Ariane and Elster, and Elster, the Elster unit, were sent on a project called the Penrose Project to find different planets, only for their only for their attempts to fail. But and the ship starts to fall apart because it is meant to fall apart at a certain point. But the two, because of their relationship with each other, Elster ends up putting Ariane into the cryo chamber as she's dying from radiation poisoning to preserve her life. The ship crash lands, and Elster is separated by Ariane, and Ariane apparently has bioresonance or very strong bioresonance. Not clear if it's something that she had before or if it's something that she developed. And I'm wondering if it's developed or something like that. But she develops that bioresonance ends up distorting reality itself because she's in a cryo chamber being affected by radiation. And that bioresonance ends up going towards, oh my god, I can't remember the location's name. Falca, that's her should have it. Because of the bioresonance, it affects an area, the Serpensky facility on Lang, the Serpensky facility, which distorts reality and causes Falca, who's the leader of that facility, to examine it, the threshold, only for her to get infected and in turn infect the entire facility. So when we start the game, we are exploring this corrupted facility, and eventually trying to get back to the Penrose in order to free Ariane from the cryo chamber. That's like in gist of it. That's basically the story, like the main story. And in the process, we learn a lot of different things. We have a lot of different references to a lot of different, specifically the King in Yellow, among other things, right? As part of this story. So in the gist of like this relatively simple story, basically trying to save someone from basically eternal torment and out of love, you get this really complicated story with a lot of backstory. And I think the beauty of it is the fact that it is so simple and yet gives us so much detail about this lore, this world that's just so beautifully, kind of crafted, you know. So yeah, that's the gist of it. So as far as the other theories go, like what the heck is going on, I think, and I could be wrong again because I didn't play the game and I'm looking at it. There are let's plays and stuff on the wiki, but even the wiki isn't super clear about certain things because this game is meant to be kind of vague. So one thing that I don't really hear people mention is the connection between. Let me go back to Falco real quick. the Serpensky facility and the Penrose, right? Like how is it possible that unless they crash landed on Lang, which is weird, it's the outermost uninhabited planet. Let's see if there's any reference, anything else with Lang. And it is a Lovecraft reference. Looks like okay. I guess the one thing is, like, is Serpensky where the Penrose is, or did the Penrose crash? And I kind of doubt it. I don't know. I don't think um, the Penrose is on Lang and with next to Serpensky, even though it looks like it. But actually, if you think about it, the transitions as to when Elster travels from Serpensky to Lang, I mean to the Penrose, it glitches, and it's also that scene where we see the threshold. I believe also, I could be wrong. Actually, let me look to see. Let me look up the Penrose. Yeah, and they're all references to stuff like Serpensky Triangle, Penrose Triangle. Yeah. Let me look up the Penrose real quick. I think so. There's like different intros. Okay, let's see. Oh, this is the different interiors. I'm actually looking for the exteriors. Oops. Looks like they still gotta edit those. Let's see the textures for the Penrose. Yeah, there's one where it's like whited out like this, and then there's one where it's not. It's really interesting. Because if we think about it, for the Penrose was whited out in one of the scenes. As Elster's traveling to the Penrose, it's covered in snow. But if we look at the Serpensky, it's not. I don't think it was covered in snow. There's no indication that it was snow. It's mostly an underground mining facility. But even when the few scenes where Elster's outside, supposedly of Serpensky, so as Elster's heading towards um, the archway, there's no snow there either. So it's like, I think I think it's not the same location. So I think what's going on is the Penrose is in one location in a planet of snow, while S23 Serpensky is not. It's in Lang. So I think the two are not in the same location. So somehow I think the bioresonance, not what is Isolde, Ariane's bioresonance, along with Falca's bioresonance, is what the two ended up linking together, and that's what caused it. And I think part of the reason why it's so powerful and so chaotic is because Ariane is suffering from radiation poisoning. So it's like it's really just messing with her because it causes a lot of pain and degradation. And I guess if she's in that state for a very long time, she starts to lose it, right? Which is, I think, I've represented in that one ending where she doesn't recognize Elster. And I'm not sure how that triggers. I think it has something to do with how long you explore the area and how many like things that you get to understand the story. So it's almost like Elster's helping her remember what's going on. It's almost like she's looking through Elster. And kind of, as we, the player, are learning about it, she's also kind of like remembering who she is in the mess of everything. Another theory why I think her bioresonance is affecting that far, and that the two locations are not the same, is the flesh scenes. So certain areas in this area, Serpensky, but also the other area, they start melding together and things get blocked by flesh. We actually also get other locations of Lang, and not just on Lang, but also on where is it called? I'm jumping between pages. Veneta. We actually see some scenes of Veneta with the bookstore and all of that. So therefore, it's her memories of Veneta melding with the reality of Serpensky through Falca. The two just melded together. Now it's possible that maybe she's close enough. They're close enough to Lang that that's why Falca is getting it. But I'm actually kind of wondering if maybe. Now here's the interesting thing. So the Penrose project, they're trying to get to another planet, but at was it 3,000, whatever units they were called, they eventually the ship would fall apart. But if we look at the this thing, I think they end up going to like 5,000 or something like that. So like way beyond. And I think I believe the wiki says it's about 8 and couple months or something like that. As for the Penrose project, I could look that up. Let me look it up real quick. I'll look it up from here. Penrose. I have a bunch of tabs open. Does it say how long they were in the Penrose? Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3. They had 3,000 cycles or 2,827 days or approximately 7.74 years. So they were on there for years. But apparently they kept going because Elsters are not expected to live, and yet somehow Elster lived. So it's possible Elster did die. You can determine that same cancer was killing Elster slowly. Yeah, and I'll talk a little bit about like how these units work, because these units are the replica units are weird. Like they kind of don't make sense in this reality. But anyways, yeah, they went from like way past 3,000 cycles, and they're slowly dying of the radiation poisoning, the two of them. That's an important note, by the way, that both Elster and Ariane would be affected by it. But anyways, that's very far. Unless they circumnavigate it somehow. I think they were so far, and then we don't know also how long they were there. How like when they crash landed into that icy planet, how long they stayed there, and how long Ariane was in the cryo chamber, because I think eventually it spread to Serpensky, which is the farthest planet of the nation, and I think that, and then it hit Falca, which caused the entire corruption. So I think that's what happened here. So the two are getting melded, and it's both her memories, so Ariane's memories, but also Falca's memories being mixed in all together, and that's causing the Serpensky. Now, do I think Serpensky is physically being changed? Yeah, actually, I think so. I think Serpensky is actually being physically changed. Now, it's interesting that Serpensky, I think it's because it's not being changed by Ariane, but I think it's being changed by Falca, because her mind is like being all like that. Because they noted that when she became sick, that's when all of this stuff started happening. It started to corrupt everyone. Now, I think Ariane's thing, her bioresonance is causing a sort of like space and time thing, where the two planets are being connected physically. So that's why Elster is able to travel between them, kind of, and it glitches out in certain places. And I think that's where the memories are kind of coming back, and it's like Ariane and Falca trying to like their minds are so mixed up with each other. I think that's what's happening. The two are just like mixed up. We also know that Ariane does care a lot about Elster, because Falca mentions that her mind and Elster's is starting to be melded together. That's why she's going crazy. And I think that's why, that's what causes that insanity in the first place, is that she's starting to disassociate, but at an extreme degree. Also, while, the whole thing. Now, I guess this is a good point to mention the King in Yellow part. So the King in Yellow is a book that it's actually the precursor to, it predates Lovecraft, H.P. Lovecraft stuff. But it is like one of the quintessential like eldritch texts. And the thing with the King in Yellow, I haven't read it myself. These kind of books do kind of are meant to be confusing on purpose. But I think with the King in Yellow, and I'll go ahead and look it up. The King in Yellow. Yeah, it's a book that's in it, and it's actually inspired by the real life book. And the first time we see it is in Ariane's room. The interesting thing about it, it's the room that I'm pretty sure it's her room in the Penrose. And it makes sense that we start here, because it's like this, if the room is a representative of your safe place, your mind, then that's why the book is there. Do I think there is physically a King in Yellow and all that stuff and all that thing? I don't think so. I don't think the King in Yellow is a thing. I think it's more of just a reference for people to kind of realize that this is madness. And I always want to see, what does Ariane's room look like? Do we have a picture of it? Is it in here somewhere? So when she starts to disassociate, when she starts to go kind of crazy, and when she starts to, like, the shores of oblivion, that whole part, I think that's her, like, it just represents her going crazy. You know, like The King in Yellow as a book, if we are meant to see it as the, like, the play itself, you know, because basically, so in summary, The King in Yellow is a bunch of short stories, um, by Robert Chambers, and it's all kind of revolving around a book, a play called The King in Yellow. And if you read this play, you go crazy, right? Like it makes you go insane. And some of the characters do actively quote, like they pretty much quote. What's his name? Adler quotes The King in Yellow, like, yeah, I wear no mask, and all of that stuff. But I don't think like anyone is in particularly like the King in Yellow himself. I think it's more just the madness that Ariane is experiencing is being represented as the King in Yellow. So her madness is basically personified by Adler and the King in Yellow. Right? Adler being interesting because he's actually the only male character pretty much in this whole game. There's one other male character, but like technically he's the only like male character. So he, yeah, might be an emissary or is the King in Yellow stuff. I don't think he is. I don't think it's that literal. I think these messages about the King in Yellow is like Ariane kind of losing it. Like it's her mind. The notes in the Shores of Oblivion, I think it's like her descending into madness. Now, the other thing is the color yellow. Again, I haven't read The King in Yellow, but I do know yellow as a literary device is typically associated with madness. So we have the yellow wallpaper, all that stuff, which is interesting if we connect it to the yellow wallpaper, because it is about women specifically with that one. Yeah, so the color yellow is almost always represented as like madness. Not just madness though, in madness in like, oh, everyone's going crazy, but it's mental madness. It's like I guess like I'm trying to think of it. It's not angry madness. It's like I'm trying to describe it in a way that makes sense because it makes sense in my head, but it's like it's so hard to explain. It's like loneliness madness, like emptiness madness, really. And again, I'm not 100% sure if that's the part of King in Yellow because I never read it. I'm grabbing this mostly from Yellow Wallpaper because it makes sense because Ariane was isolated only with Elster for like that. And technically now, even with Elster, they get separated. Like, so her reality literally slips when they're separated from each other, due to the radiation. So that separation, I think, is causing her to go crazy, which is exactly what happens in Yellow Wallpaper. Again, yellow, King in Yellow. So the two are kind of connected in a way. And I think that's the kind of madness that I'm kind of trying to explain here. The madness of isolation. Isolation, but also, I don't want to say betrayal, but like one of the things about this story is that it's a lot of, do we sacrifice our humanity for something, for the greater good? And that's also another theme of Yellow Wallpaper, I think, like in a very abstract sense, that society assumes that we should be something, that we need to do something for our society, even if that kills us, even if that causes us madness. So I think that's what this story is kind of saying. Do we sacrifice our humanity just for the quote unquote advancement of our society? And that's kind of what I think that's the major parallels that this story is trying to say. It's interesting that it has a lot of ties. It feels like a lot of connections to the Russian Revolution. There's a lot of just, it feels like it. Like, first of all, we have the war between the empire and the nation. So it was a civil war, first of all, a revolution. That this empire, which, by the way, was shaped by the bioresonance of the Grand Empress, right? So she somehow shaped this this empire and created the replicas and created this whole nation, only for the the Great Revolutionary to rebel back and create a new nation, right? For that. So it's kind of interesting. We don't know exactly the details of what kind of sorry, not revolution, kind of governments these two nations are, but based on their names, I'm gonna assume empire is a nobility type, and I'm wondering if she created, if the empress of grand empress created it, which again, empress, that's what we use usually. It's an indication of royalty, right? Again, Russian undertones here. um, that this might be a nobility of some kind. I wonder if she's like immortal in a way, because it doesn't seem like she has heirs. Although according to the puzzle, the Empress's Hand puzzle, the first day she was crowned, the longest day nothing was done. The next day she was wed. The last day she took her life. It's like she's like a godlike being almost, and it feels this kind of sequence feels a lot like Genesis. It sounds a lot like Genesis. Among other things. So I think that's why she's like a godlike being, and usually gods, the birthright of kings is gods, right? The gods give the kings the birthright, their birthright to become kings. So I think that's what it is. So most likely the empire is a nobility type, royalty type government. And then the nation is a great revolutionary. So this, I think again, speculation, huge, but it sounds like it's a communist regime. It really does feel like it. Again, if they're making parallels between it and the Russian Revolution, which it sounds very strongly of. And the reason why I'm saying that it is because of the way that the people are treated. They're not treated like individuals. They're treated as a unit, using the replica units as basically labor, like slave labor, to get things done that are dangerous. Everybody has to go to military school. Everybody has a role. Everybody has a cog that they fit in place. So I think the game, and again, I apologize if I offend anyone or if anybody is like, oh, why are you being political? I'm not. I'm just kind of explaining like what I think it is. I think the game is kind of a criticism of the communist regimes, like this totalitarian kind of regime. I think it really is criticizing it. Like it's literally, you have no humanity. That's in, and it's pretty extreme. Other ties to the Russian Revolution is the fact that they have a space program in the first place, the Penrose program, which again ties a lot of feels a lot like the Russian space program. The whole Penrose thing, like Laika, they didn't expect these ships to last. They just wanted to see if it was possible, but they didn't expect the person inside or the animal inside to even live. Exactly what happens with Penrose. They didn't expect Ariane or Elster to come back. They were like, nope, you're probably going to die. They had everything prepared. They were going to die. So it's interesting that they sent her out. And I also have like another note about why she was sent out. And it's kind of part of this tragedy too. I'll go ahead and mention that. So if we look at the medical database that we get, she's actually in it. I'm trying to find her. Where's she? Yes, here she is, Ariane. So she has a medical history. Now, interestingly, everybody who has a medical history in this thing, they all have some sort of like, they all have like some sort of medical history, first of all. Okay. They're all kind of interesting that they're all together. And that these characters, yeah, so they all have like some sort of medical history. So Ariane's interesting because she has okay, I can pronounce it. This word. Basically, her hair is turning white, among other things. Also, she has the scene where she was bullied, um, and it seems that she has some connection with the Ituvs, these two, Erica and Isolde. So, Isa, which we see throughout the story. Isa, we actually meet throughout the story as she's trying to find her sister Erica. It seems like because of their job working at the bookstore, but it seems like books are being censored, which again, Russian Revolution kind of vibes here, communist regime vibes right there. Um, it seems that the two um, were kind of like reading stuff that is against what the nation wants. They actually mentioned reading The King in Yellow, so that's kind of interesting too. But also they have a book talking about the bioresonance in the bookstore. So it's kind of like this information. They're kind of like into it. So I'm wondering if this isn't necessarily just a medical database, but also a watch list almost. It feels like a watch list, having so much information about them. Okay, and same thing with and Ariane. We know is connected to them because they've actually met each other. She met them in school. Okay, and that's where the bullying happened. And it seems that Erica backed up Ariane when she was being bullied, which is brings up the theory that maybe Erica was sent to, was it as the mines, as punishment almost, which again more kind of communist references there. The idea of worker camps and re-education camps. And yeah, sorry if I'm phrasing this kind of dicily. It's because it's sensitive, but also it's a difficult thing for me personally to talk about too. Anyways, I'm kind of going back to that idea that maybe the health database is actually a watch list, and I'm thinking it's a watch list because they have medical histories, and I'm wondering because of the designs, like so for this character Fong, Resida Fong, she has so those diamond markings. That's the same as what Colibri have. Like they're the only characters that have that distinct diamond mark. Okay, and again, medical history. This character is blocked out. Doesn't react well to antibiotics. Factory worker, all that stuff. Let's see, and they're all from like everywhere. Veneta. Well, let's see. So Rot Front, Veneta, Rot Front, Veneta, Keats. Doctor's notes removed. Like some of this is interesting that they're unknown cause. Rot Front, Veneta, Rot Front. Antidepressant ration was doubled. Like they all have kind of these interesting medical histories. Now, Nikolai, this guy looks a lot like Adler. Like he kind of oddly looks like Adler. Like they kind of look a lot alike. And I think I don't know if you all are kind of seeing what I'm trying to say here. That I wonder if these people were made into replicants. Like these replicant units are like, oh, you're not replica units. It's like, oh, you're not very useful. Let's use you, again, towards the greater good, quote unquote, to create replicas, make you stronger, remove your human weaknesses, and make you basically a robot. Now, I'll talk a little bit about like why I think that. Well, it's because these guys look just oddly alike, and I think they're taking people who are purposefully weaker, sicker, kind of like that. And it's because it's interesting that all of these, and they're archived. They're all archived. It's like, oh, we've taken care of them. We don't need to worry about these guys anymore. Some of them even have missing doctor's notes, like removed. Here's Ariane's removed. Ariane requested that she go into Penrose Project because she didn't want to be in she's a loner. Like she didn't match with the what society was really going for her. Um, like she said, I don't fit in. She's mentioned that in like one of the texts, and that she feels more herself out there with Elster actually. So, um, going to with the replica units, we're not sure how they're made. It says that there's synthetic neural reproduction of a person, copying a neural pattern of a gestalt to form a new replica unit. I think it's possible that I think this is kind of interesting. So I think there's actually two humans being involved here, which is kind of um, let's see. I'm trying to look at the degradation real quick. Deviating from original pattern. Da, 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 da. Focus manipulation to ensure the closest pattern possible. Just productive, loyal, and docile. Okay, I think the okay. So let me pull up characters real quick. Where are the characters? There's so many things. This game is so complicated. It's so fascinating though. Like I'm thinking about this game for hours. So sorry if this video is long. It's just me rambling about like these characters because of how cool they are. Who was I looking for? It was. I'm gonna put the skulls real quick. Erica, Lilith, the two. Okay, so I think that the replica units are being made. First of all, they're making a bunch. Second of all, I think there's two things going on. They have a physical body that they need, a human body, and then they have a neural pattern that they inject or like load up into the body in order to create the unit. So it's actually, I think it's two, maybe. And the reason why I'm thinking it's two is because so they have a file of that specific unit. So they're all supposed to be, the memories are suppressed right here. Their memories are suppressed in their skills categories. Well, it could be the memories of the gestalt that they're formed after. Like, for example, if we take Falca seems to be based off of the, they mentioned the Great Revolutionary and her daughter. So it's possible that that's what it is. The timeline is so whack. I forgot about Alina too. Oh my god. Actually, do we have a timeline? Sorry guys, I'm just... Is there a timeline? No, I don't think there is. There's like a really rough timeline. What I'm wondering is what's the gap between the empires, the revolution, and the current day? How long ago was that war? It is now locked in a war with the empire. Well, it's still going actually. You know what? I'm gonna assume that the empire and the nations, the revolution, is more recent, and that it's kind of died down, and the empire is like licking their wounds and starting to come back. Which is why, while the nation is able to like continue going with like things like that, that may be why they're not putting a lot of resources into space travel. It's just interesting that they are, but I think that they are still they're still fighting each other. So maybe there's a small gap. I don't think it's a whole generation though. I think it's probably just a small gap of a couple of years, and then they're still fighting. And that goes along with this theory that I'm trying to think of basically that the replica units are basically anybody who's too weak, injured, or even the enemy perhaps. Their bodies are being used to make replicas by repressing their memories. Okay. They do mention that for the Ulster unit specifically to not mention anything to do with the war. Okay, so I think the memories are close enough. Also, if the I also think part of that is also that the Falca units are newer. They're not as they're actually kind of new. They're used in every facility, but I think they're a little bit newer because if they're based off of the revolutionary leader, maybe the leader actually figured out how to do bioresonance as well. Maybe somehow developed it, or is somebody who is related to the Empress and can do bioresonance or something. We're not sure if it's genetic or not. It could just be like it got developed. Yeah, that's what Falco is based off of, is the revolutionary. So So I think they're a little bit newer than they seem. They're not like that old. Maybe some of them are like older types, but it seems like they're a little bit newer. So I'm wondering if they're taking the bodies of people who either rebelled or people who are weak, sick, or even just enemies of the state are captured, are like, oh, like roped in, like, oh, you're going to serve the greater good. So they turn them into replicas, using memories, and then the replica personalities themselves, I think, are based off of, they seem to be coming from military personnel. Okay, which makes sense. And it seems like their face plates can be swapped out and whatever. And the reason why I'm saying that they are made off of human bodies is because looking at their, and this again doesn't make much sense. If we look at the, so they have flesh underneath, and they have like some oxidizing fluid, which is why you can't eat one. Don't eat one. You know, unless they figured out how to do bioengineering and create a body like that quickly and pump them out. That just seems so improbable. It doesn't make any sense. Also, the fact that they have organs, like they have lungs, and they have digestive tracts, hearts, things like that. They have brains. This is where I think it's kind of weird. Like, we don't see any of them eating. We don't see any of them need to eat. Why do they have a digestive tract if they don't necessarily need to eat? Like, some of them are like, I've been here for hours, like here for days. Like the Colibri unit that we find in the library, we don't know how long that person's been in there. They don't need water. They don't need food, right? And same thing with Elster. Like if Elster, if they ran out of supplies like that long ago, then like, that's another thing too, is the supplies. How did Ariane survive, that long without supplies, unless she's rationing them somehow? Just crazy. But anyways, for the replicas themselves, like, do they actually need water? Do they need food? Or are they just like, we could be here for hours. We could be here for days. We could just chill. Unless all the rooms happen to be equipped with water that isn't corrupted. But like with the whole system, like everything falling apart, like, do you even have do you even have personnel to do food and water for you, So do they even need it, And also like the lungs, we know that Elster is pretty much immune to radiation because we get to the one room in the Penrose where the radiation, it's like no problem. They're also tougher, which is why they just don't die from this mysterious disease, which is interesting that it's affecting the Gestalts as well as with the replicas. Because even if Falca is affecting the replicas, I'm wondering if the disease. Now that I think about it, they're falling apart, aren't they, and disintegrating? I wonder if it's that radiation that Ariane's like literally suffering from is the disease that they're dying from. Because radiation literally makes your body fall apart, which is what's so nasty about it. It's like gross. If you've never heard of that before, be careful if you look it up. It's nasty. It's like a horrible, you basically are rotting from the inside out. It's insane. Your body literally just falls apart, which if that's what's going on here with the Gestalts, they're literally just falling apart and turning into blackened puddles. That's like severe radiation, like being bombarded with it almost, And also the symptoms that that Isa goes through in the game is very similar to radiation. Like, yeah, you can see in this scene, she realizes she's being infected. Things like that. So I think that could be it, that it's radiation to the extreme. And what's going on with the Adler units, it's a combination of not just the radiation breaking them down and their exoskeleton, their inner skeletons like still running because it's metal. They wouldn't degrade like that. And their flesh is just kind of like lumping around it. That's why they look so mutated. But their brains are also being affected by Falca because she's the main one. And she's the one that's like affecting their brain. So it's like they kind of have a double whammy, which really sucks. And just why they're like going crazy and disassociating and all that. And if I'm right that it's literally like two different minds together in one, it's like it's really going to mess you up. Falca especially because she's also getting Ariane and the thoughts of oops, my chair, of oh my god, Elster as well. It's interesting that it's Elster's mind too that's going out, unless Elster is melding with Ariane somehow. There's also a theory that Elster is dead, that the original Elster is dead, and that all of the other Elsters are actually different um, other Elsters, because there's more than one Elster unit. But then again, the beginning of the game, Elster comes out of a cryopod, which is interesting. So unless this Elster put herself in the cryopod after putting Ariane in there, and then all of the other ones woke up, and that somehow it triggered that one to open. I don't know, maybe. I'm thinking this Elster is actually um, now I think our Elster might be Lilith E2. Okay, like either her body or her mind. One of the things about the Elsters, we know that they lost the original one, the file, and then they had to use another Elster, a dead Elster unit to get the memory stuff from. So that could be why all of them are doing the same thing. It's because it's that memory. I think it might be either Lilith E2's body or Lilith E2's mind is the Elster unit. And the reason why I do that is because this Elster, we have so many connections with Lilith, the whole eye thing, the eye metaphor there, being stabbed in the right eye by Adler. Lilith as well, losing her right eye. We know that Ariane, right? Um, Ariane is like kind of interested in Lilith, you know, um, and also her connection to the Itu family too. You know that maybe this is like a, I don't know, could speculate, just another family member, and that maybe they're like, oh, she's really cool, like, you know, I'm interested. It was kind of why she wanted to kind of look into the military in the first place. So also the name Lilith as well is pretty symbolic. Rotfront, fourth planet from Ariane, is lived during their teen years. Focus of the nation's expansion. Yeah. Okay, so Rotfront is the most recent colony. Interesting. It's Europa or another Jupiter. Okay, well, yeah. Okay. Again, is it our universe or their a different universe? I don't know. Um. Anyways, yeah, it's just Rotfront is one of the areas that the medical database mentions too. So I was wondering if there was anything there. I don't know. Who knows? Okay. I'm just trying to remember what I'm trying to go for. Yeah, so the replica units, that's what I think they are. Really depressing. So the whole thing, just again, for the greater good, and all of the replica units. So I'll talk a little bit more about the replicas. They are definitely a hierarchy, where the Falco unit is the number one, and then everything else is like, there's like, you know, they have a whole hierarchy. They have like roles, very specific roles. Their names are literally their own roles. And I think for these guys, it's almost like a hive mind, like literally a hive mind. We get that mostly from the Colibri, which they are a hive mind of themselves, and they use that hive mind to control the others, to improve mental stability. But they still have like a queen, and it's interesting that they're all female, minus Adler, which is very much like how it feels very bee-like, you know, hive mind bee-like, in a way. And I think really this is a metaphor for how the empire is running. You have a role. You need to fit that role. You don't fit that role, you die. You know, or like you get removed, you get punished, you get changed, something like that, to control everybody. And the thing is, I think the story is saying that they're literally changing. Like you can't control people like that. It eventually causes all of that. Like what happens now that this happens. The bioresonance almost feels like a deus ex machina of like, what if? Like, okay, cool, you have this much control. That power you use to control us, what if it goes against you? Do you actually know what's going on? And one of the books does mention, do you actually know what the heck this stuff can do? Like, should you be messing with it? And Falca, which by the way, I love Falca's design. She's probably one of my favorite designs in this game. They actually they they have bioresonance. They have like a bioresonance command thing that's like in it's like a beta test or some, or like a prototype. So they don't actually know what's going on with the bioresonance. They're just sticking it in there and just see what happens. And I think, and it's like, oh, it's to make it more stable and whatever. But it's like you're messing with technology that shouldn't be messed with. This is very powerful stuff. And I think it's like, although it seems like they might be trying to keep the bioresonance under control, it doesn't really explain, like, it says that everybody has it, but it doesn't say if you can learn how to use it, or like over time you could become that or something like that, like things like that. So it seems that Falca, yeah, like that bioresonance, caused all of the issues in the first place. Sorry about the pause. Um, yeah, it bends people's minds, and that in turn actually, because her mind falls apart herself, falls to madness, right? That causes the whole unit to fall apart. So it's like relying too heavily on one unit like that also just corrupting one corrupts the whole thing. And I think that happens with bees as well. I think there's like some sort of disease that can cause them all to kind of go crazy, and it infects the entire hive, something like that. It's really depressing. So yeah, again, I think it's more of a criticism almost of these kind of regimes where if the head falls, then that's it. So that kind of corruption. Again, King in Yellow references. So I don't think the King in Yellow is that literal. I think it's literally just a descent into madness, and that these characters are suffering from that. But I think the cruelty here is, even though the bioresonance is technically, you can say, oh, it's the fault of Elster. Technically, it's all Elster's fault. If you think about it, it's like, oh, you can say Elster. It's Elster's fault. Elster is the one who put Ariane in, didn't end her suffering, caused her to do the whole thing, and now she's suffering inside the cryo chamber. All of that stuff. But I think if Elster were to quote unquote like do that and follow with expectations, none of this would have happened. Like the revelations that we learn, this glaring hole in the empire, I mean of what the nation is doing, doesn't really get exposed. So obviously it's part of the story, and you can say like, oh, she's the one that caused it. But I think another thing, and this is the tragedy of Signalis, and I think that's why people won't necessarily blame Elster directly, is because first of all, Elster actually tries to fix it, and the whole thing is like Elster going over and over and over again trying to fix what happened. And I think it's multiple Elsters that are trying to do it. That's why there are a bunch of them in the elevator, and Adler's trying to stop him. And that's ironically what makes this Elster not die, because they're all piled up. It's so depressing. I think like she, that Elster is actually, this is the Elster 512. This is the Elster, somehow woke up. I wonder if it's like Ariane waking her up, from that. Like, we now need to end this cycle, And they keep calling it, it's almost like a cycle repeating over and over again. Anyway, what was I trying to go over with this? Sorry, the game is like so all over the place. Yeah, so we can't blame Elster, but I think it reveals a glaring hole in the issues that the nation is doing. That the nation is, they're the ones that kind of also caused this to happen, which is why I don't think we can blame Elster for this. Elster's just a victim of the whole thing. Elster's just doing what she thinks is right. And she's very solidly minded. It's almost like an anime protagonist. Just like, I will save the person I love. I will do what I think is right for her. And it's kind of cute in a way. It's like she thinks that her programming told her to put Ariane into the cryo chamber to like ease her suffering. Only for that suffering to be more, because the project was never meant to go that far in the first place. And she didn't know that, because Ariane purposefully didn't tell her, just to spare her from that, I think that's what it is. Like, we can't really blame her. So really, it's the nation sending these two basically to die, you know, is the tragedy of it all. Um, and we know that, like, these units, you know, it's like, oh, they're following orders. But we can tell that it's slipping. Like, we can see that in the notes of, like, the issues that these units have. It's all about their emotions. They want to suppress their emotions, but they can't. Like, they are ultimately still human inside, you know. Um, all that. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's what we see with Elster, is that Elster, especially with some of these scenes, Elster has quite a lot of emotion in her face, in her expressions. She's not quite as just like, you know, like, she's pretty stone faced most of the time, but like, she does show emotions, you know. And it's kind of really cool when we see that. Okay. But I think that's what's kind of going on here. Okay. So that's kind of my theory of Signalis. That was like an hour of just talking about this game. And I feel like there's so much more we can talk about, but that's basically the gist of what it is that I wanted to say. It's a beautiful game. I think it's worth watching a whole Let's Play of it. And I also probably should just said this is a spoiler warning for this game, because this game is so spoilery. Oh my god. Like, this whole video was so spoilery. Oh my god. So sorry about that. But that's my theory about it. I think it's actually kind of it's not, it's depressing, but I think it's kind of hopeful that humanity ends up prevailing. I like these kind of stories more. And this is just my last thoughts about this game. I like these stories more, where it's, even though it's depressing and all of this stuff, in the end, humanity prevails. Like, this, humans, like, love is more important. You know, all of this stuff. Yeah, love is more important than progress, things like that. It really reminds me of what is it called? The I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, which, by the way, very depressing story. Like, it makes this story seem kind of quaint, actually. Very depressing story. Like, it's so bleak. But in the end, the main message of it is that humanity prevails. It is better to be human than to be machine, you know? Like just pure raw progress, which is what I hate about certain sci-fi, is that it's all just about depressing, like, that's it. Like, there's nothing you can do. You can't change humanity. You can't change. In the end, like, oh, maybe two people will change, and it's like, it's happy for the two people, but I don't see a massive change in that society. This is why I didn't like Hunger Games, and I didn't like Dune. I'm not really into those because of that. It's just so depressing. It's like, no matter what you do, everyone's just doomed to die. Signalis is a little bit different to me, even though, yes, I'm pretty sure the Empire will continue and all that, but this blow to that whole, to that unit, realizing that this is what's going on, and it's like inevitable. No matter how many times they try to hide that these units can't be human and all that stuff, it's gonna just destroy them in the end, you know. It's basically gonna, like, just it's gonna destroy them in the end. It's already corrupting them, because that's the nature of it. You know, it's inevitable. I think that in the end, this is going to happen. People will find a way. You know, life will go on, right? So I think that's what it is. And yeah, it's just a big criticism of this type of, like, totalitarian control, I think, causes this. So yeah, so I think, like, with people who want this kind of thing, it just can't happen. Like, you get mentions like this, you know. And I think the reason why it's not quite so bleak is that these units, they seem to do care about each other. These replica units actually genuinely seem to care about each other. They actually kind of, like, act buddy with each other, you know. Like, Falca, Adler talks very highly of Falca. The Colibri units they're pretty close to each other, you know. And some of these, they're paired up because they help each other, you know. So I think you can't get rid of the human factor, no matter how much they try, how much they want to, how much they're even going as far as giving the leader unit the ability to manipulate time, reality, it's not working. You know, it's not going to work. I think if anything, they might see this as a failed attempt. Um, you know, I think it'd be so cool to do a like more world building with this. I don't know if they're ever gonna make another game. It almost feels like don't just leave it the way it is. It's beautifully done, just the way it is. You know, just keep it like that, and then have people come up with theories and stuff like that. I think it'd be really fun. Anyway, so that was a very long video. I'm sorry about that, guys. I just really liked this game. This game is so cool. Again, a lot of these theories could be completely wrong. That's totally fine. I don't mind. This is just how I felt about it and how I thought about it. I'm still not 100% sure about the whole replica units being two different gestalts, the body of the gestalt and then the file that they're based off of. You know, they all seem to be samey, like the same. We're getting this from the Calibri mostly, and Falca being like they all look the same. At least that's what they say. You know, I could be completely wrong, so who knows? I don't know. There's some inconsistencies like the age of the two sisters versus Ariane, and it's a couple other things too, and also the timeline doesn't make any sense. How long ago was the revolution? Blah 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 blah. And there's all this stuff, but I think like that's just of it what I think it is. Yeah. Anyways, thank you guys all for watching. Again, rambly video. That's all I make. That's all I ever make. I never make like actual videos. Jeez. But I just wanted to put my thoughts about Signalis. All right. Now that it's still kind of fresh in my mind. Okay. Thank you guys all for watching. If you made it this far, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much. All right. I'll see you guys in the next video.